Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Hi, Jay Fallon. This is the slippery slope. So I want to read through this article that's come through. Before we go into it, if you're not from Australia, you probably haven't heard of the what's been happening here in Queensland. We've had a lot of youth crime, and the government that's been voted in the very end of last year, beginning of this year, the Liberal government, they ran with on this promise that they would bring in adult crime, adult time. That was their slogan. So if you were a child, teenager who had done a crime that they would considered being a kind of an adult crime, then you would receive adult time for it because there were so many children, so many young people who had been committing crimes, skiting about it, bragging about it on, on TikTok or whatever, and seemingly getting away with things, getting very lenient sentences when they were caught, if they were caught, and when they were caught. So they came through with this adult crime, adult time. So we're going to go through this article, and I just want to share what's happened to me personally, a few stories about, and go through why I think the way I think, I suppose. Let's have a look at this. Okay, so this was in the Mandarin. Queensland Human Rights Commissioner condemns youth crime bill. The QHRC has questioned the government's claims that exceptional circumstances justify overriding the state's Human Rights Act. So it justifies it. That's what he's saying. So that's our Premier, David Crisafulli. Human Rights Commission has used a committee hearing to blast the state government's approach to youth crime. The latest tranche of government's making Queensland's safest adult crime, adult time laws effectively removes the idea of detention as a last resort for children in practice. This means children as young as 10 could be held on remand by default, depending on the final version of the bill. The government has acknowledges it will have a disproportionately negative impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and is seeking to override the state's Human Rights Act to push the bill through. Now, I know there's going to be people out there who are going to be saying, yep, this is awesome, this is a good thing, adult crime, adult time, these kids should be held accountable. Which, in theory, like I said, I do believe this. I do agree with it in theory. Anyway, what I would be questioning is the overriding the state's Human Rights Act. We've got a bit of a history of doing this. Continuing on, Human Rights Commissioner Scott McDougall told the Justice, Integrity and Community Safety Committee the bill would not do what it says on the tin. Adult crime, adult time might make fun for an effective slogan, but it doesn't make for good law. I urge you to recommend against passing this bill and recommend the government move ahead with a coherent and properly coordinated plan that will actually make Queenslanders safe. The first round of adult crime, adult time laws was passed last year, overriding the state's Human Rights Act to allow a sentence of up to life imprisonment for children as young as 10. So again, overriding the state's Human Rights Act. Do exceptional circumstances justify overriding the Human Rights Act? Premier Crisafulli agrees the government's youth justice reforms violate the Human Rights Act, but said the exceptional crisis of youth crime justifies the move. The government cites statistics from the Queensland Government Statistician Office that between 2014 and 2024, the number of youth charged with stolen cars and robbery tripled, and the number of youth charged with break-ins and assault doubled. So the Queensland Human Rights Commission submission contradicts this view, saying youth crime in the state is actually trending down. they've got a submission saying the government has cherry-picked statistics that support its political case. The government figures refers to the number of child offenders actioned by police, meaning the figures may include youth who were subsequently acquitted of the alleged offences or where charges are discontinued. Additionally, comparing offence numbers in one year to another year can be misleading. A more accurate way of demonstrating increases or decreases in offence rates is to observe how offending rates have changed over a prolonged period. ABS stats show the rate of Queenslanders aged 10 to 17 is half what it was in 2008, decreasing from, what is that, 3,575.8 to 1,828.8 per 100,000. In 2023 to 24, Queensland's youth offender rate was fifth in the country, behind New South Wales, Northern Territory, Tasmania, and Western Australia. In all but the NT, youth incarceration rates are trending down too. The submission says this demonstrates there is no crisis and no justification for overriding the Human Rights Act. The Commission stresses that even if it is possible to point to year-to-year increases in relation to discrete offences, this is insufficient to establish that there is an exceptional crisis with respect to youth crime warranting a broad and far-reaching override of human rights, it says. Like I said, in theory, I agree with adult crime, adult time. There's been a few instances where we've had some horrific crimes committed by younger people. And I think there's also been times when they've been let off the hook far too easily. And I think a lot of this may have more to do with the magistrates more than anything else. They haven't been held accountable. However, so like I said, in theory, I agree. But here in Queensland, we have, I think, a dangerous history of ignoring human rights or making the excuse, hey, this, we can justify it by this. This outweighs the need of this to do this, outweighs the need for human rights in this area, so we justify it. I want to share with you, I'm going to bring this up, I'm going to share with you the letter that was given to me, the first letter that was given to me when I was stood down from being a police officer. And in this letter, I was stood down with pay for 2 weeks. So this was the letter saying this is what's going to be given to me, and then the justification. So this section here, this was the letter given to me from, the generic letter given from Katarina Carroll, Commissioner at the time. And then it's already gone down. It's outlined, hey, this is what's going to happen. You've disagreed. You have not followed the Commissioner's directive. I think it was Directive 14, something like that, about getting the COVID vaccine. So it's gone through all that, and this is what's going to happen. We've considered these things. And now it's gone through human rights, this section titled Human Rights. I consider that my decision to suspend you with salary and allowances, it's got in brackets. Now, that salary and allowances was for 2 weeks, okay, and ask you to show cause why you should not be suspended without pay. Why you should not be suspended without pay may limit your right of equal access to the public service, and if a decision is subsequently made to suspend you without pay, your right to property, which might include remuneration. Because my decision enforces the direction, it also limits human rights related to autonomy and bodily integrity, including the right not to receive medical treatment without consent and the right to privacy. Because your reason for allegedly failing to comply with the direction is based on a conscientious religious belief, this decision also limits your right to equality and non-discrimination and freedom of thought, conscience, religion, and belief. However, the howevers, these are all the things, hey, this goes against your human rights. This goes against your right to equality and non-discrimination. We acknowledge your freedom of thought, conscience, religious belief. We acknowledge that it goes against all these things. However, I consider these limits on human rights are reasonable and justified. What did Christofouli just say? Hey, these are all our, limits on children's human rights. They're justified. We can justify it. She said to me, they're justified by the need to ensure compliance with the direction as follows. The purpose of ensuring compliance with the direction is to protect. It's to protect the health and safety of QPS employees. Remember, because if I'm in the workplace and non-vaccinated, okay, I'm obviously a danger because obviously once you're vaccinated, you can once you're vaccinated, uh, obviously you can still get it if someone who's unvaccinated comes in and he gets it, and then what's the point in being vaccinated? Whatever. It was, obviously, it's all obvious. One person can't be unvaccinated. No, no. The purpose of ensuring compliance with the directions to protect the health and safety of QPS employees and members of the public with whom members come into contact. Suspending you will help to achieve that purpose because it will mean you do not present a risk of transmitting COVID-19 in the workplace. Alternatives such as a temporary transfer or another alternative working arrangement have been considered. Yeah, my butt they were considered. However, because of the nature of your role and your location, because at the time I was in a specialist area doing very specific work with a very specific skill set, well, anyway, they couldn't just put me anywhere else, apparently. And in consideration of the safety of the workplace, the services, workforce, and the safety of the community, suitable, meaningful alternative duties are not available. It is a serious thing to place employment consequences on a person's exercise of their dignity and autonomy to make decisions about their body. However, the risks posed by COVID-19 to the service, its members, and the broader community are also very serious. Ultimately, I consider the importance of ensuring the health and safety objective outweighs the impacts on your human rights. On your human rights. In other words, screw your human rights. This outweighs those. So, like I said, Christofouli says, "Hey, we can justify it. We justify it because it's a need within the community. So it is definitely justified." He said. The commissioner to me, how many years ago was that? 4 years ago, I think, said to me, "Well, we can justify it. We understand that this goes against your human rights, but we can justify it." Every year in the police, when I was there, you had to do online training, specific online training, and one of the ones that we had to do annually was the Queensland human rights training, online learning. So every year you go through and you do this learning, and then you've passed, you understand the Human Rights Act, the Queensland Human Rights Act, you understand it, you know what we're all about, and we stand for that. Until things get tough, until the rubber hits the road, until we actually get tested and we have to come through, follow through, and actually uphold human rights, then we can find it. We can easily find an excuse. We can easily justify why your human rights do not matter. So when I read this, like I said, I do believe, in theory, adult crime, adult time. But when it comes to practice, I mean, the law machine in Queensland, the justice machine in Queensland, it's a big machine. And inevitably, once you crank it up and say, yep, okay, all these kids, all these people who have done this kind of thing, they're going to get adult time for the crime, you're going to inevitably get someone caught up in the machines, in the in the workings of it all, of the justice machine, who's going to be caught up, who just shouldn't be there, or who's either innocent or has just been swept up in the moment, and now they are really sorry, but they're facing adult time because of the adult crime that they have participated in, even though maybe they were just had a small part in it. And I want to share a story. When I was in general duties in the police, there was at the time, at what section of my general duties career, part of policing, I was working in a small town, and I was placed as part of my role as general duties. I was also the uh, not like a liaison officer. I was part like a school liaison officer between the police and I think it was the high school out there. So one day I was called and by the school because there was a female student who hadn't been attending school, and I think she had attended one day and then she'd gotten very abusive. I think she may have, can't remember whether she attacked a teacher or attacked other classmates, but she was definitely very abusive, aggressive towards a lot of other people, and she stormed out of class. Anyway, so I had to go and just check up and see what was going on. This girl was only young, like really young. I think at this time she might have been 12. 12 maybe going on to 13, so she was really young. Anyway, eventually I found this young female, and I did know of her. I'd seen her around. We'd had some dealings with family and whatever, and she was fairly young, like I said, 12, 13. Anyway, eventually I've come across her, and she was probably about 20, maybe even further, 30 meters away. And I was sitting there and I think I was calling someone, or I was on the radio saying, oh, I found someone. I didn't have my eyes on her when I'd seen her. Next minute, bang, my car window gets hit by a rock right at my face, right next to my face. Oh, if the window wasn't up, I would have been clocked in the head. Startled me. I thought, mate, she has got a good arm because she was at least 20 meters away. I thought, flip, hang, that was a good shot. Anyway, at that time I thought this is a prick of a child, and she'd done a lot of. She was a painful kid at school, like the teachers and everything. Just she was very disruptive. She was abusive. She was aggressive. You'd see her outside of school. She was abusive. She was aggressive. She had no respect for us as police, no respect for other people at all. I just thought this is a prick of a child. She should be charged at that time, with who knows, with whatever. I had no time for her. I was very uh, yeah, I just had no time for her at all. I just thought she's just not a nice girl, and whatever her excuse is, who cares? Anyway, she's disappeared for quite a while. I didn't realize what had happened. Child services had ended up taking her away for a while, and then a couple of months later, she's returned, and I thought, oh, great, okay, this girl's back, and disrupting the community again. She's back. Several months later, I learned some history about this girl, what had actually happened, talking to a social service person. Now, this girl, like I said, when I at this time frame, she was only just in high school, so she might have been around 12, maybe going on 13. So I'd learnt that she'd actually been abused, sexually abused, from a very young age. When I knew her, she was only maybe 12. She'd been abused for who knows how long. It had been going on by at least one family member for quite a while. Uh, quite a few other family members knew about it, and had talked about it, but absolutely refused to make any statements, to give any evidence to police, to make any complaint. They were not going to say anything, talk about it, do anything. Um, but I believe so. They'd let child services know, but there was nothing else that they could go through other than uh, they made some changes in her life to protect her as best as they could. But what it did, it really allowed me to see, it forced me to see this girl in a completely different light, because I realized that this child who had been aggressive, abusive, who was just a very unpleasant person to be around, and the minute you saw this person, you think, mate, is she going to throw something? Is she going to start swinging? She's obviously going to be swearing at me. Is she going to try and kick me if I have to go up and talk to her? She just whatever. But then you realize she's been abused. She's been brutally sexually abused from a very young age, and she's still very young anyway. Um, and no one's ever stood by her side to help her deal with it. No one's ever stood by and helped her confront the people who have done this to her. And actually, at that time, I think one of the people who had, as far as I knew, who had been doing this was still living in close proximity. And all I'm saying, getting back to David Crucifulli saying, well, I think we can justify this. We should be able to justify this. Adult crime, adult time. So it goes against human rights, children's human rights, but I can justify it. We can justify anything, like what happened with me and other police when the COVID vaccine mandates came out. It was obvious to everyone, including the commissioner, because she put it in the letter that, hey, this goes against your human rights. This goes against your rights to not undergo a medical procedure. This goes against your rights for your freedom of religion, freedom of belief, freedom to express yourself. It goes against all those rights that you have to do your online training for every year. It goes against all those rights. But what they say, however, and here's the excuse, here's the justification. And that's all Crucifulli does. Yep, it goes against the child's human rights. However, we can justify it. And Queensland and Australia, I think, unfortunately, we have a history of justifying and making excuses why we can overlook human rights. Why we want to sit up and say, yep, look at us. Every year we stand by human rights. We tick all the boxes. We say all the right things. We look like we're doing the right things. But when the rubber hits the road, when things get tough and we actually have to make a stand for something, well then, however, let me justify why we no longer have to stand by those things that we said we're going to stand by, that we said we're going to stand up for. But however, well, now we're going to justify it, and we're going to justify it this way. And however, we're not going to stand by human rights. However, we're not going to do those things that we said all those years we said we would do. But that's when things were going easy. That's when, it just made us look good. That was for us to look good. That's all it was. I mean, we as society have dropped the ball a long time ago when we pushed the family unit aside. We ignored God. People can chase after any form of depravity that they want. We really dismantled the family unit, discouraged the family unit. We told men that they didn't have to be responsible for their families. We told women that they don't have to be responsible. After you've given birth, you're a hero. You look what you've done. You've done all these things. All you've done is given birth. But you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go out and work. We'll just give you the money to do everything. We have not supported the family unit, and then we're surprised when we're paying the price with teenagers, with young children who don't have role models to look at, to follow, who don't have any good leadership that they can follow. And then we're surprised when they're out breaking the law. And then we're sitting up going, well, just blanket statements, adult crime, adult time, screw you all, this is what we're going to do. Yeah, we have human rights, we have children's human rights, but we can justify why we don't have to. We just say, however, and that's all that matters. Anyone at all can stand up, tick a few boxes, do an little online test every year and say, yep, look at me. I stand for human rights. I understand human rights, and everything's going good, and this is what we support. But when the rubber hits the road, when things get tough, what do you actually want to do? What do you actually stand for? What do you actually believe in? Because when your beliefs are tested, that's when the true color of people comes out. That's when their real integrity comes out. What do you actually believe? Just because things get a little bit tough doesn't mean that you just forget everything that you believe in and you walk away and then you justify your actions because, well, things are hard now. Things are hard, things are tough. As soon as it doesn't work in our interest, as soon as it becomes too hard, well, then we sit there and go, however, I'll justify it, as old Katarina Carroll did. Anyway, that's all my opinion. You let me know what you think. My name's Jay Fallon. Check out the rest of my podcast. Thanks for listening to The Slippery Slope.
They just fuel a desire that will take me higher. I'm on fire because nothing's gonna